we are, May 2022. COVID cases are rising. Health officials are recommending wearing masks inside again. Sounds a lot like January, when we were in the midst of the first Omicron surge. Back then, Chicago teachers demanded better protection from the virus and more K95 masks. A concerned teacher reached out to me with a tip about the quality of those masks. And we found out they were actually tested, failed, and rejected by the feds. Only on two, we wanted to know what the city knew and when.
The mayor is being relentless, but she's being relentlessly stupid.
A brutal start to 2022. More than 340,000 students out of Chicago public schools during a heated standoff.
I will not allow them to take our children hostage.
With the highly contagious COVID-19 Omicron variant surging, teachers demanded more protection before stepping back into the classroom.
If it means we're all healthy and alive, I think it's worth it.
It ended after 5 days when the teachers union and Mayor Lightfoot reached a deal. Stepped up COVID testing, rules for remote learning, and another major requirement. More of these KN95 masks for teachers and students. But almost immediately after CPS started handing out these masks by the thousands, I got a message from a teacher. She said something seemed very wrong with them. They felt thin and more uncomfortable than others. Online, she saw the masks made by Zhejiang Baiyi Intelligent Garment Company were revoked by the federal government. So we started investigating and contacted ECRI, a nonprofit that tests masks using federal standards. Right away, they found a problem by looking at just one box.
It surprised us. The box said that should only be worn for 4 hours.
How rare is it to see a mask that only says to wear it for 4 hours?
It's the first one we have seen.
Teachers Union President Jesse Sharkey says 4-hour limits are senseless.
Teachers in a school for 7 hours a day.
CBS 2 also uncovered documents showing the same mask brand failed federal tests in May of 2020. In a sample group, several didn't meet the 95% filtration required by the U.S. government. The lowest filtration was 78.6%. That led the FDA to pull the brand off their list of authorized masks for healthcare workers in June 2020, and a year later, revoked their use. The CDC gave similar guidance for other workers. If we're talking about a mask that has a filtration efficiency of 78.6, which they consider to be failing, how much more at risk would someone be?
They would be at a significantly higher risk.
What would be your recommendation as far as wearing them?
Not to use them.
We got a small number of the masks from concerned teachers and community leaders and asked ECRI to test them. They didn't find the same filtration drop in this limited sample.
But we didn't test as many, and so if you want to really compare apples to apples, you would have to go back to a larger sample.
The problem is that people are given a KN95 mask and they assume that it's working to protect them.
So how did 200,000 of these go out to CPS schools for teachers and students? Why did another 500,000 go to community groups? Here's what we know. They got these masks from the city. Social media pictures and video reveal that. The images also show when the city got them, in September 2020, 3 months after the brand was rejected by the feds. We took our findings to the city and CPS. That started a tedious back and forth of emails for months with a maze of finger pointing. Then finally, the city's public health commissioner agreed to talk. We asked multiple times when and what they knew about the failed masks. She wouldn't answer that, but said,
KN95 masks are a definite step up from, some of the cloth masks.
We also asked, did teachers and students have the right to know? She sidestepped that question.
The decision in January was, do we release the cash that we have held in case of surge? And I felt strongly about releasing that.
We pressed the city about the 4-hour time limit on the masks.
We made the decision, and I would make it every time right over again.
It was only after we started asking questions that CPS told us they would stop handing the masks out to teachers and students. But the city is still holding on to 250,000 of them.
The city knows that there's a problem with this masks, but that information never makes its way down to the teachers on the front lines. That's not acceptable.
I take offense, frankly, that there's a concern that in some ways they are putting people at risk.
The city says the federal government gave them the masks, but again, no clear answers because the federal government says they never shipped those masks.
Well, where'd they come from then? I mean, someone sent them.
Yeah, well, what we were able to determine, no clear answers, was that they were shipped from China. So does that mean that the federal government, in saying that they didn't have them in their possession and didn't ship them, does that still mean that the federal government may have ordered them and sent them to the states and the cities? Still no clear answers.
But either way, they didn't alert the cities that these masks were no longer approved, and the cities either didn't know or didn't look to see.
Right, and that, we were finding the same problems at the federal level as the state. It seemed that maybe one arm of the federal government, maybe they didn't realize they failed, and then the other one decided to ship them out. We've asked repeatedly, both here and the federal government, and we still don't know.
All right, Erica, thanks. We're going to turn now to